Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Um, Welcome to our Cloud Sangha here, our Cloud Zendo. And we are so lucky to be with dear Christiana Figueres, um, incredible climate activist, and who's come to share with us Roshi Jones, Sensei Kozan, Sensei Wendy Dinan. Thank you all so much. And I love to see all the faces in gallery view and say hi to many friends and long time attendants of Celestials. And the chat is open if you just want to say hi. Just a word about that. The chat will be open when we open it up for questions. And generally during the talk itself, we'll keep the chat closed so that we can focus on the speaker. So just so you know that that's happening. And of course, this program has been freely offered, and the teachers give generously of their time. And I thank you all so much for your donations if you've given dana or made a donation. And if not, and even if you have, please do give generously now or at the end of the program so that we can support our teachers and support our online community. Thank you all so much for joining us again, and Roshi Joan.
Thank you so much, Kodo. And with me, I want to say hi to Sensei Wendy, Sensei Kozan. Hi, everybody, my good friends. We all embraced yesterday, and then Wendy and I got on a plane, and we are now in Costa Rica and looking forward to seeing Christiana in person. And I want to thank also the hundreds who are online right now. We began this process in 2020, sometime in the late spring when the pandemic hit. And we formed this global community of people who are deeply concerned about how we move forward in a world that is so imperiled. So I deeply thank you all for joining, and also for the continuity that has been established by hundreds of us in meeting now every month to look at some of the core issues that we're dealing with in our very fraught world. I was reading today, and a piece came across my computer from Hannah Arendt. And I just want to begin with this piece that by Arendt, in a certain way, opening up for what Christiana is going to share. And always, by the way, when we do these meetings that we're having, right, like this morning, we have an introduction. Someone, Kozan or Wendy, will lead a brief practice. We're going to ask you how you're doing, what's alive in you right now. And then our featured being or featured person will share their thoughts. And then we'll open to a community discussion, exploration, questions, and so forth. But these are the words of Hannah Arendt, and I just find them so important as we face so much infoshum that is, sort of information confusion and so much deception. And what Arendt wrote, she says, constantly lying is not aimed at making the people believe a lie, but at ensuring that no one believes anything anymore. People that can no longer distinguish between truth and lies cannot distinguish between right and wrong. With such a people, you can do whatever you want. I'm going to read that again. Constant lying is not aimed at making the people believe a lie, but at ensuring that no one believes anything anymore. People that can no longer distinguish between truth and lies cannot distinguish between right and wrong. With such a people, you can do whatever you want. And to balance that out, our mutual friend, who is also part of this series, Rebecca Solnit, she says, joy doesn't betray, but sustains activism. And when you face a politics that aspires to make you fearful, alienated, and isolated, joy is a fine initial act of insurrection. And then let us be fed by revolutionary joy. So again, I want to thank Christiana and Wendy and Kozan, and of course, Noah, Kodo, and the Upaya staff and residents, all supporting what we're doing this morning. And also all of you who gathered, just know, as Noah said, your generosity of whatever amount makes it possible for us to do what we're doing this morning. So I'm going to invite us to put into the chat, opening that chat, Noah, your bioregion or your watershed, and really what one word that exemplifies what's alive in you right now. And I'm going to ask Wendy and Kozan to share some of what you're putting in the chat.
And you want to start us off?
Yeah, I see a lot of community and hope. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Lots of people writing hope, groundlessness, gratitude. Someone said pain and hope. Determination. Yeah. Kozan?
Yeah, I'm seeing Sybil in Germany sharing curiosity in this moment. And Brenda, deep connection. Anna says teamwork.
No.
And Constance Bradford, concern. Someone shared beyond grief. And Julie Fullerton shares love. Lynn Heller in Seattle, also this feeling of connection. Over 600 of us gathered to remember we are with each other in these times.
Wendy, a few more.
Shodo, I think she was just at Upaya, shares revolutionary joy. Theodora, resistance. Joy as resistance, says Kim. Possibility. Kathy says determination, resilience, and hope. Joe says wonder.
Marianne Willoughby says deep friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And MJ shares with us unrest.
Maybe just two more.
Yeah. Debbie says turbulence and gratitude. And Isabella says wise hope.
Beautiful. When Noah, Kodo, let's save these alivenesses, okay? You know, after what's going on right now, but really it was after the election, we at Upaya felt that it was really important to continue to bring together a wider community of solidarity and a community of action as we chapter in our nation's history, a chapter which is being written, you know, every single day since November, particularly, however, in the past few weeks. And this is a call, you know, this is a call for awareness in action and in thinking about this. I always have to turn to, you know, the fact that our good friends and teachers who care deeply about our shared future, just like everybody who's gathered here. And also, like so many of us who are gathered here, our teachers endeavor to meet the injustices and suffering in our world with courage and with wisdom, but also with love. And, we look at this series as a kind of platform, a way for us to call forward our basic humanity. And doing this means that we have to turn toward the great challenges in our world, and we have to affirm our vows. And it's so important to be acting from solidarity in this time of radical uncertainty. I'm just thinking about the injustices that we're observing at this time. And I cannot turn my heart or eyes away still from Gaza. And of course from Ukraine and Sudan and Myanmar, other wars. So I keep saying more than 30 wars raging on our planet. And also the environment and climate. And also the covert and rampant racism and sexism in our culture. And the fundamental violation of rights of so many beings, not just humans, but of all creatures and all entities, rivers, mountains, and so forth. And one of the things that has been really important for me, and Christiana really carries this sensibility and sees so clearly the impact of often unacknowledged, damaging social structures and also opinions and beliefs that we live in, and the worldviews and the frameworks implicit, within our political, economic, and ethical structures that fundamentally undergird our very lives. So, in part, we have to question and call out the extractive systems and views in our society. And also, we've got to come to terms with our responsibility for being part of these structures that actually lead not only to direct violence, but also structural violence. And as we're looking at right now, our democratic structures, not only in our country, but really around the world, are fragile at best. And we also have to look at the issue related to corporate interests that have become more and more powerful and more visible, as fundamentally as dominators of our political, social, and economic cultures. So this is what we are doing, but we're also exploring with each other the path forward. How we can create robust and nourish robust communities of care and of action. How we can educate ourselves about what is actually going on today. And also how we can practice, as Rebecca said, revolutionary joy. It is so essential that we are not weighed down. But as Terry Tempest Williams has encouraged us, and she's also part of this series, to find beauty in our broken world and to let it resource us as we engage hazard in every quarter. So in exploring with Christiana what we're doing today, one of the things that Christiana said, yes, Roshi, climate, but she also was so clear that we've got to look at leadership now. And so braiding these themes together, climate, and boy, we just see, climate agreements being rolled back in so many quarters, including our own nation. Christiana will touch into that, but also, what does it mean to actually activate a kind of leadership that is radical, inclusive, courageous, and also based on this deep heart of service. So as we know, or I'm sure most of us know, Christiana was the architect, among others, she'll correct me, of the Paris Climate Accord. She's also clear we've passed the threshold set by nations, so many nations, in relation to global warming. And she's also someone who has a very deep and dedicated Buddhist practice with our mutual teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh. And I just want to invite Christiana to step forward and share what she's going to be sharing today. And then we're going to come together, all of us, as a gaggle. But before she does, we're going to take a breath with Sensei Kozan. And thank you, Kozan, so much. A breath is really important right now.
It really is. Thank you, Roshi. So we're just going to take a few minutes to sit together. And if you have a meditation practice or not, you can just follow this kind of simple structure of finding our posture and dropping into the breath. And just to say, this is a time to really not make anything or strive for anything, but to kind of return to ourselves and our lives and this presence of being together. So in that way, if we just find a posture that's upright and at ease wherever we are, or maybe we're lying down and listening, that works too. But finding a posture where we feel the sensibility of in our body of dignity and presence, strong, rooted back, soft, porous front. And taking a few breaths to just gather our awareness in this way, finding ourselves where we are in our body, in the room that we're in this community that we're in. And you might just say to yourself on the inhale, gathering awareness. And in the exhale, dropping into the body, feeling this awareness in the breath and the body. On the inhale, gathering awareness. And on the exhale, dropping into the body. And as we begin recalling our intention for practice, which may just be the intention that brought us here today. And with whatever arises for you, bringing to mind this vow to relieve suffering in the world, our own and all beings, human and beyond human. And so that's not just a thought, but a felt sense we can bring to mind someone in our life or a community or maybe even a pet who's facing suffering or difficulty, sickness or loss, and feel our natural inclination to show up and to come alongside. This is related to the solidarity Roshi was speaking to, the natural inclination to be with. And allowing this felt sense in the body to be the vow that inspires our practice. And then very simply bringing our awareness to the breath in the body. Finding it wherever it rests, maybe in the chest or deep in the belly. And connecting deeply with the inhale and the exhale. Connecting the thought of awareness with the felt sense of this moment. allowing the posture and the breath to be an anchor for our awareness, not excluding anything else that arises, but really allowing everything to be as it is. If you have a practice of counting the breath on the exhale, you can count each breath, or you can notice each breath as it comes and goes in the body. As we sit in this way, you may notice tension in the face or in the shoulders, maybe even in the toes. And you can just relax, find that uprightness, and rest the attention in the breath and the body. As we sit in this way, we'll notice that thoughts will generally take our attention away into the future or the past, into the ideas that are always kind of running under the surface. So we can notice this drifting away in a world where there's so many draws on our attention, noticing the ease with which we follow a thought. And in that noticing, just return. No need to judge or to make anything of it. Just returning to the breath and the body in this moment. We don't have to make anything in this practice or achieve anything. We don't even have to solve our life. We can just return to the sensation and the immediate experience of being alive and connected. Finding a home in just this present moment. As Keizan Zenji told us, simply do not find fault with the present. So in this way, for the next minute, just dropping into the breath together. And see if in this presence you can feel the collective practice and awareness of all of us gathered here in this shared practice this morning or afternoon. Just in stopping and seeing, we find our connection to one another. In these final breaths, we can inwardly dedicate any benefit in our lives and the lives that we touch and those around us that arises from gathering today to the relief of suffering in the world, to the benefit of all beings. And we can bow together.
No, Kozan, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Really. Dear Christiana, I think you're somewhere and Noah will spotlight you.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation to join you in this series of reflections on awareness in action. How fortuitous to have chosen that topic. Little did we know how much we would need it. Again, thank you so much for asking me to join you. I have been assigned the easy and small topic of climate change. So I think we should start by at least recognizing that we find ourselves at a time of profound gravity. And last year, as Roshi Joan has mentioned, last year our planet crossed the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold for the first time. That is not a mere statistical milestone, but it is actually a stark reminder of our rapidly closing window of action to avert the worst. In addition to that, while greenhouse gas emissions continued their relentless rise in 2024, we witnessed over 40 nations going to the ballot box, including the United States. The consequences of that election are unfolding in front of our disbelieving eyes as we witness how reckless climate denial threatens to unravel years of careful and difficult progress in the US. Now, of course, the world is much larger than the US, and many other countries have understood that decarbonizing the global economy is the only way to protect people, to protect planet, and in fact, even to protect profit. So ironically, the decarbonization of the economy might well continue in the United States, despite the current administration, driven by the sheer competitiveness and push of clean technologies. Globally, if some nations step back, as has been announced, others will step forward to fill the manufacturing vacuum and the marketing opportunity. And the recklessness in the United States shall pass once the current shrapnel shower has subsided, albeit having likely caused even more dangerous delays to climate progress. But friends, I have to share with you that what is keeping me up at night these days is something even more fundamental and perhaps even more urgent than climate change. What keeps me up now is the breaking of the very bones of society. We are witnessing the dismantling of something very precious. The role of climate action as a unifying force for social justice, racial equality, women's opportunities, children's rights, protection of ancestral lands, the health of both humans and ecosystems, and so much more. These challenges are intimately interconnected. Their intersectionality has taken us years to fully comprehend. And just as we had finally understood those crucial connections, they're being overthrown, both in relation to climate, but also as specific social inequities. I will pause here one moment to acknowledge that there may be some friends in the listening audience who support current administration policies. And I fully respect your right to hold those views. But I cannot remain silent about what I am seeing. Egregious overreach of power, shameless assault on human rights, inhumane treatment of the most vulnerable, arrogant displays of dominance and exceptionalism, and the widening not of a gap anymore, but now of a gorge between rich and poor. The dramatic and traumatic announcements we have heard from the US government over the past few weeks are deliberately causing chaos and crisis to push through radical structural changes while citizens are overloaded with news and disoriented by the rapid fire. The arrows of callousness and intimidation are meant to frighten individuals, to reduce public engagement, and to weaken democracy. That is in the United States, but as Roshi Joan has reminded us, similar acts are taking place under much less media coverage in other countries. Precisely when we need radical collaboration to address global environmental challenges and other global challenges, the exact opposite is taking over in so many corners of the world. The fabric of the society we long for is being pulled apart. In short, our societal and ethical bones are being broken. So, what do we do? Some suggest we look away and pretend it's not happening. Nazi Germany was the devastating consequence of such willful blindness. Others advocate for what one could call spiritual bypassing, gluing ourselves to our meditation cushions, hoping things will somehow get better. Neither approach takes us very far. So I put it to you that we must carve out a third option. That option starts with recognizing that we cannot abdicate our responsibility of leadership to current national leaders. If we don't have the leadership we want, we have to call forth the leadership we need. This is the moment to step in and step up, to discover and nurture the leader that lies within each of us. For some, this may be a very natural step. For others, it might take us out of our comfort zone. For sure. But the time for comfort is long gone. The leadership that is required must be one of alignment along three levels: alignment with self, alignment with others, and alignment at the broader systemic level. So first, alignment with self. Sounds easy. I assure you, it is not as easy as it sounds. And for me, by far, the most difficult level of alignment. It requires the courage to face the truth about ourselves, to look into the dark corners we conveniently ignore, to acknowledge that by judging others, precisely as I have been doing over the past few minutes here today, by doing that, I am by default sanctifying, angelizing, if that were a word, angelizing myself, hiding the painful and perhaps even shameful inner truth that, when seen, will make me stronger. In this particular case, I recognize my quick reaction to deem my values and my principles superior to those I see exhibited by the people I criticize. So, am I entitled to cast aspersions? Well, let's take a look. When I entertain deprecating thoughts and utter unloving words about my very own blood brother, am I not being sanctimonious when I say no judgment? Am I living out of my highest self when I consider how to outwit him in the family issues in which we're embroiled in such a difficult manner? Tough to look at. Furthermore, professionally, in my commitment to have a positive effect at the global level, could I perhaps have forgotten the local, the here, the now of so many people? Have I perhaps overwhelmed or overseen those who have no other option but to focus on the next meal on the table? In my infinite wisdom, to imagine and draw ever-expanding circles of positive impact, could I have become disassociated from the immediate? Have I become, to some extent, aloof, distant, insensitive to the experienced reality of so many people? Even if my intention is noble, does my language mystify my purpose, which may intend to be on impact close to home, but actually does not ring of proximity? So, turning a mindful lens on myself, I see how I have been so quick to engage in the othering behavior, which is so abhorrent to me when I see it in others. Lesson learned: self-reflection brings the necessary dose of humility. Second, alignment with others. If governments are not going to care for their citizens, we better do so ourselves. We can practice leadership through caring and through service, creating safe spaces for others to bring their fear, their grief, their anger, in whatever shape or form that comes, to be received and embraced without expectations and without judgment. We can intentionally build communities of humility, of empathy, and of love. Communities that are anchored in kindness and compassion. Kindness I recently heard a former head of state say that her mission when she was in office had been to bring kindness to citizens. Now, my friends, kindness has sadly become a scarce resource, and we can do something about that. We can ensure kindness remains a renewable and a constantly renewed resource. Thirdly, systems alignment. We must understand that our interconnection with each other and with all other species persists even if it is denied by some, just as the sun does not cease to burn because of a passing cloud. We each have a direct sphere of influence, which we can easily identify: home, family, office, institution, enterprise, company that we work for. But we also have an indirect sphere of influence, which is boundless. Our every thought, our every action has vast ripple effects, and those are destructive or constructive, depending on the nature of the originating energy. I would argue that heretofore it has been perhaps sufficient to focus our impact on our immediate surroundings. But given the systemic, structural polarization we're witnessing, I would suggest that we have the opportunity, if not the responsibility, to act locally, yes, but at the same time, be purposeful about the vast ripples our actions have. It is that mindful intention that propagates the ripples way beyond what we can see or touch physically. Just as an illustration, think of the mycelium, the network of invisible underground highways that connect all trees in a forest. The mycelium not only distributes nutrients, it enables one tree to send information of either opportunity or of threat to all the other trees in the forest, whether they stand within sight of each other or not. We are interconnected in a somewhat similar way, being able to send out waves of caring that touch beings far away in both distance and time. We all inter-are. So friends, today, right now, we can move from the understandable, traumatic, disbelief, and paralysis. We can move to loving engagement. We can build bridges across the very divides we see, crossing the walls we ourselves have helped to erect. We can create pathways of love and kindness. How do we implement that type of leadership? Well, I would say it starts with a daily choice. Leadership is not positional. It is not a one-time decision, but a continuous commitment. We must practice what we could call strategic optimism. Not blind hope, but clear-eyed determination. Remember that what gets fired together gets wired together. Our consistent actions create lasting change. The future is written in the present. We can still choose a path of transformation, but it requires every one of us to step into our power as a leader. This is not the time to remain in despair, disbelief, or denial. It is the time for clarity of thought and awareness in action. Some people attribute to the renowned anthropologist Dr. Margaret Mead the story that she was once asked, what was the first sign of civilization? And after a thoughtful pause, she answered that the first sign of civilization was a healed femur bone. Whether coming from Mead or someone else, the story is instructional. In humanity's earliest days, a broken thigh bone was a death sentence. Even if the victim could have survived the injury itself, they would not have been able to gather food for themselves or defend themselves against any animal attack. A broken femur was a slow but certain death, unless some other person acted beyond their own self-interest out of compassion and kindness to provide the necessary care over an extended period of time. In our journey toward healing our fractured world, we would do well to recognize that fundamental truth about humanity. Civilization emerged not from dominance, but from vulnerability and care. Let's contemplate that profound moment thousands of years ago when one human decided to stop and tend to another with a broken leg, choosing compassion over self-preservation. That isn't a mere historical footnote. It's a powerful mirror reflecting our present moment. Just as our ancestors faced the choice between isolation and connection, we stand today at a decisive crossroads. Will we remain trapped in the cycle of othering that is tearing the fabric of our society? Or will we choose, with fierce determination, to walk the path of love and kindness? To those who say, drill, baby, drill, I say, breathe, baby, breathe. Stop. Focus. Do not allow the news to keep you mentally scattered. Take a moment to scan through your body, your heart, your mind, and your soul. Take a moment to mindfully align from the inside out, from your innermost to your outermost. The brokenness we see today is not our final state. We can transform it. Like a plant breaking through harsh soil to reach sunlight, we must break through the walls that keep us divided. In our intricately interconnected world, when one part of humanity suffers, we all bear the wound. We can be the mindful guardians of a future based on care and connection. It's not a simple path, but neither was it for that first human who chose to tend another's wounds. We have within us the capacity to transform any reality we are given into the reality we want. One where broken bones, broken spirits, and broken systems all find their healing. This is the decisive decade. For climate change, yes. But it could also be the decisive decade for redefining what it means to be human. We could be in the midst of the most critical rite of passage humanity has ever experienced. We can choose to be cultivators of a world where healing happens through millions of small acts of care, rippling outward to touch every corner of society. And it isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about nurturing what makes us whole.
A breath for all of us as we let your words and your commitment settle into our bones. Christiana, this last 40 minutes where we've been listening to you, and in the listening, going back to Hannah Arendt, to, in a way, rehumanizing ourselves out of the objectification of everything. It's been a kind of declaration of interdependence, a declaration of love, as you have called each of us who are online into taking responsibility for reducing harm and mobilizing kindness. I really thank you. I'm gonna ask Kozan and Dinan to reflect briefly, and then we're gonna open up the chat and also the field, the community, to questions and comments going to Essence. But I'm gonna ask Kozan, as you've listened to Christiana, what's alive in you right now?
Thank you, Roshi, and thank you, Christiana. I feel the kind of confidence and steadiness of your life spent in political turmoil and in bridging what seem like unbridgeable gaps or gorges, as you put them. So just the sense that, oh yes, this is the process of being alive right now and the thing we show up to, when it's very easy to feel like, oh, is it even possible anymore? In this media culture and this political culture, what can we knit together? The sense that, oh no, this is just the activity of sowing truth and connection and justice together is really alive in your words. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Kozan. Thank you also for everything you do in this way. Dinan.
Thank you so much, Christiana. As you all know, my focus is on healthcare, and I see the bones of medicine and science being broken right now also. And of course, the health of each human being is closely related to the health of the planet. And our ethos in medicine is to take care of everybody in the same way, with kindness. And I see that that ethos being erased by, certain what's happening in the world right now, banning words from science, banning certain care for a marginalized population. And so listening to you really helped me bridge that with the inner work that we do. You were talking about how looking at our own judgment. I mean, I definitely am also do that a lot with myself and with others, and looking at that courageously to really be a change maker for real by starting from myself. And that is the work that we all have to do. So thank you so much for the wonderful talk.
And listening to Dinan and Kozan, I'm also reminded of a story about A.J. Musty. I've shared it over the years. Needless to say, he and I were close to the same generation, and during the war in Vietnam, he ran for president, for those of you who don't know. Needless to say, he didn't win, but nonetheless, the story has persisted about him standing in front of the White House night after night with a single lit candle. And often he was alone. And this reporter approached him and asked him, as he was standing there in the rain, sheltering this candle, he said, Mr. Musty, do you really think that what you're doing is going to change the politics of this country by standing out here alone at night with a candle? And Musty said, I don't do this to change the country. I do it so the country won't change me.
Mm.
I know that many of us feel in a certain way powerless against the tsunami, talk about cancel culture, of betrayal that we are facing right now. And what you're suggesting, I think, Christiana, is so important, that we have to be deeply aligned with our values. We have to keep our moral character intact. And we have to have the kind of capacity to, within ourselves, to act skillfully and courageously in relation to rebuilding or building a new society that is rooted in kin, in relationality, in connection, in kindness, knowing kin and kindness share the same root. And our friend Terry Tempest Williams has made it so clear, it's not a matter of waiting anymore. And in a recent piece, she quoted Bruno Latour. He's an anthropologist and philosopher, and he said, we are all living in critical zones. There's no place, you think you can go, the joke was, to New Zealand or Costa Rica to get out of it. But even you say, we know, as we're sitting here in Costa Rica, there are issues. We're all living in critical zones. We're all living in a critical time. And our actions really matter. And how we are with our own mind and heart, and also as embodied beings, how we relate to the world around us in terms of, getting on the airplane to get here. I was going, well, we planted 70 trees at Upaya in the past months. I walk out of a room, but I always turn off the lights, or I always try to. In the small choices, as Dinan offered a talk earlier this week in our Zendo, the small choices matter. And so do the big choices. So we, in a way, are being, and this series is about it, it's a call to action, to be a lamp in this critical time. And what I'd like to do is, we have many lamps gathered online with us. And I'm going to ask, for us going to Essence, because we'd really love to hear from many of you. Just, the time is to hear from many. We've heard from Christiana, from Dinan, from Kozan and me. But I ask you, let's go to Essence. Raise your digital hand. We're going to call on you. And also put comments in the chat, and Dinan and Kozan will share some of those comments. And let's begin with Christine Rogers. Hi, it's so nice to see you. Again, so important to go to Essence. Christine. I'm unmuting you. Wait a minute, I'll unmute you. There you
Thank you
go.
so much, Roshi. I live in a town of Peekskill that is a Latino heavy town. There was an ice raid here on a Thursday morning. The question is, who do you want to be? Do you want to be with, like, some of my neighbors who have denounced the people across the street who are migrants? Or do you want to be the person that's going to give out constitutional cards away in Spanish to inform people of their rights, like a bunch of us did? We were reported, by the way, for doing that. I just wanted to think, this is really the question. Who do you want to be? What is your identity in this time? And that's it, going to essence. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for what you did. What we're doing right now, as you know, really, really matters. Thank you so much. I'm going to invite Marjorie. Again, going to essence.
Deeply grateful. Agree with all of the comments to help create cultures of kindness, which are Eleanor Roosevelt's cultures of human rights everywhere.
Yeah.
However, the thing that I think we all must face, whatever we're doing individually, is that we have a tsunami which is an intentional attempt to destroy democracy and create autocracy, and it is through creation of fear. And therefore, we must focus on Franklin Roosevelt's fourth freedom from fear. Whether we have money, if we have no money, we can sign appropriate petitions by nonprofits. If we have money, we can give money to the ACLU and to Amnesty International, et cetera, et cetera. We all must put our lives on the line in unharmful ways, harmful ways if we need, to create sandbags against the tsunami of the attempt to create fear in all of us. That's what we must all resist. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marjorie. And I'm thinking, you know, of the 9th precept in the order of interbeing, or the 9th mindfulness training, speaking out even when doing might cause harm to oneself. Many of us have taken that to heart. Thank you so much, Marjorie. Clay.
Hi, thank you so much, Christiana, and thank you, everyone at Upaya for this teaching. I was really heartened, and I just want to repeat it, I think, so that it sticks with me, by the breathe, baby, breathe comment, that we need to come back to ourselves. Sort of in an act of maybe synchronicity, I was rereading The Miracle of Mindfulness, 1974 early teaching. And Thich Nhat Hanh says that until we learn the meditative dimension of peace activism, our perceptions will be terribly crippled. And I'm finding in myself and in a lot of my compatriots and friends who are trying to take skillful action, that one of the afflictions is confusion. And things are meant to confuse us. And so taking the time to come back to ourselves is not selfish or wasted time. It's time to build the skillful means that we need to act. And Christiana's teaching really helped me remember that. So thank you for hosting this today.
Thank you so much, Clay. Christiana, would you like to take a moment to reflect on the comments that have been shared?
Actually, Roshi, I am so enjoying the richness of the comments. I would rather hold to the end.
Okay. I hear you. Thank you, Clay. I'm going to invite Ginny. And I'm unmuting you, Ginny. Whoops. I'm unmuting you again. Okay.
Thank you. I muted myself as soon as you unmuted me. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Christiana, to Upaya, all of you for making this possible. I was struck by a couple of things as I listened, and as you shared the story of the broken bone and the healing process and what it means to show up in the healing process. I feel like there's a lot of trauma in our systems, particularly in our systems that are working for justice. And I just am struck by, chaplaincy often is considered focused on the dying. And I feel like we are so in need of accompaniment, accompanying each other through this time so that we can act together, have courage, be healed in this process. So I see what is happening as a call for healing. And yeah, so I'm grateful for the story because it really grounded me in what I feel a commitment to, which is what does it mean to heal with each other right now, so that we can continue to do as you described, which is not to point the finger or fall into blame, but to recognize that we can take action and we can show up in a way that is kind, that doesn't separate us and bridges us, brings us together. So I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginny, so much. And also, I think the theme of humility, Christiana being a good friend, brought a personal piece into her sharing, which has to do with the suffering in her own family and her relationship to it. And, the call is for us to, as you say, not only accompany others, but also accompany ourselves, coming alongside our own suffering. So we learn and are, in fact, ultimately more resourced. Thank you so much. It was so good to see you just the other day. Welcome back. Susan Shane, Sean, Susan.
All right.
Okay, you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Roshi Joan, and thank you, Christina. My comment, I resonated with everything that was said, and what Jenny was just saying about having compassion and being able to show up. I was thinking about judgment. Christina was addressing judgment, and I was asking myself, where is that balance? I mean, we need informed judgment to be able to create boundaries of self-care, and also to be able to, not judging people per se, but judging thoughts and ideologies. Even people who embrace thoughts and ideologies that harm the well-being of all need our voices to run a contrast to those ideologies. And so I just offer the idea that I think there's a place for judgment if it's used well, and if it's used in the context of compassion and caring. I think it's an essential tool that those of us who want to create positive change need in our toolkit. Not a judgment that is condemning of others, but that says, I don't condemn you as a person, but I reject the idea that we can other people, or that we can discriminate or create good from fear. So that's just what I wanted to offer about that idea.
In this regard, that I think something that's very important is, and I mentioned it earlier, the essentiality of us educating ourselves. Not only about the strategies that could lead us to greater kindness and effectiveness, but also the strategies that have been employed to delude us and to actually, give a name to this. Kind of what Hannah Arendt was pointing to in the words I shared of hers earlier, and of understanding that, we're flooded with views that are not based in either kindness or reality. There's a kind of stew of confusion that many of us are experiencing. And so education, I feel, about what's up is really important, even though it might feel at times holding up the mirror is threatening to us and not comfortable for others. Anyway, I'm just making a suggestion. So thanks, Susan, so much. And Nandu, You're unmuted.
I thank you for this opportunity to learn and be together. I'm curious to hear, if it's okay, an example, Christiana, of this practice that I don't quite know how to do, which is to stay in a place of belonging while I navigate newer understandings and while I mobilize to action. I want to stay in a place of belonging to each while I do that. And every understanding I have of a conversational dynamic or a system dynamic or something inside me, I feel I am at the threat of then doing a little bit of, whew, so painful. It's this micro separation I do just to get a bigger picture. And then I feel like I'm a little bit outside trying to tinker with something rather than stay belonging. And I learn from examples of other people's lives, little stories. When they tell me, I go, I get that now. So I'm thirsty for some story like that. And Christiana, when you spoke, oh boy, I was so inspired. So at some point, if you could share the story of how you navigated that, that'll adjust my course just a little. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you, Nando. Can I respond there? As you were speaking, Nando, the image that came up for me is a sailboat in deep waters with the option to drop the anchor or not. And I think we often react as sailboats in a storm and forget that we have the choice to drop the anchor where we choose to drop it. And we can still be flexible, right? Because the winds and the currents will, move us around. But if we're intentional about where we drop the anchor for ourselves, then we can still be open to so many things that come at us or come for us without losing our center. So that's the image that came up for me. I don't know if it's helpful to you. But thank you for your very beautiful question. And Roshi, just as a quick reaction to so many beautiful comments that I have heard, for me, the struggle always is the struggle between the wisdom of the head and the heart that we all cultivate, and that is more firmly grounded every day in the best of all cases. So the wisdom, but there is a struggle there between that and my frontal lobe. And if I don't stop when if I don't realize that the struggle is there, if I don't stop and make an intentional choice of, okay, how am I going to be guided here? Am I going to be guided by my frontal lobe that just reacts the way we have been reacting as humans for thousands of years without the cultivation of mindfulness and awareness? Then we're just off we go. And it's such a it's a daily struggle, honestly. And I've heard from so many of you, expressions of the wisdom that we know We know the wisdom. We know what we want to do. We even know what we have to do it. We know it. We know it. We know it. And despite knowing it, sometimes the frontal lobe just takes off and takes us somewhere. And we go like, oh, I can't believe I'm here again. And so to see that with compassion, and increasingly for me with humor, because I'm going like, okay, I am 68 and here I am still in that, daily struggle. So to see it with compassion and with humor helps to soften the struggle and to embrace all of the different energies that are embodied there, and to slowly but surely be able to come back to wisdom more frequently, although never guaranteed, more frequently than to my frontal lobe reactions. So yeah, I just wanted to share that because I don't know if I'm the only one who's frustrated by that, but but it just is such a daily challenge for me, and it's such a daily frustration that I just wanted to share, to see it with humor and with love and with compassion and with constant growth.
Thank you so much, Christiana. Nandu, do you want to say something in response to Christiana's?
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you is the first thing I want to say. Yeah, very fed by the image of when dropping an anchor, I'm still very much part of the ocean, very much susceptible, very much intimately part of it. Just simply dropping an anchor in one place. It's just a vantage point, not a separation. That's how it's appearing for me, and more will be revealed as I am with it. So just feeling very grateful for the loving wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nandu. So, Kozan, you have been following responses in the chat. Do you want to share a bit from the chat?
Sure, I'd love to. There's two questions in particular that kind of dovetail, and I wonder, Christiana, if you want to speak to them. And the first was from when we first opened up the chat to these questions. Theodora asked, I want to know if I'm doing enough. How do I know if I'm doing enough when it feels like there's just an onslaught of not enough?
Mhm.
And just recently, Carrie Norton wrote, I wonder what others are doing to engage in strategic action without having all day, every day to track the news and events. Beyond the three-level structure that Christiana elaborated, what are the specific ways to focus on a few things that we can do here in the US to be active citizens and have our voices heard in the democratic infrastructure that remains? So I think this question of kind of what are our aligned actions is coming up for a number of people. And I wonder if you have any thoughts on that here in the US or globally, Christiana.
Yeah, well, I always feel somewhat uncomfortable about stepping into U.S. territory, being not a U.S. citizen, but happily engage in the dangerous space there. Let me first take the bit about how do I know that I'm doing enough or not doing enough. Quite a few years ago at a COP in South Africa, I was invited to a play that was being put on by fourth grade children. And they had written the play themselves. And it was a short play, but they had several lines that they repeated in unison, all of them, throughout the play. And I don't remember what the play was, but I remember the lines. And the lines were, I will do more, and then I will do more, and then I will do even more, but with wisdom. From fourth grade kids. And that has stayed with me for so many years because the fact is that if I'm doing enough, there's never a mathematical answer to that. Is it 2 hours, 3 hours, 27 hours, 40 hours a day? There's never a mathematical answer to or boundary to that. We can all, frankly, do more than we're doing right now. That is for sure. Which is a different question than are we doing enough? And to me, the question of doing enough is not about quantity, but quality. That is where I feel that there is still a lot of space to do quality engagement wherever we are. And I saw a lovely little story there of a playground. Do quality engagement, quality interventions that make a difference to one other person's life and therefore to our life. That is where there's a quality of engagement, a quality of intervention. When you know that after your engagement, after your intervention, you have actually touched another person's life with light and love. And amazingly, there is never a boundary to that. There is never enough of that. And so we can there really approach that with a sense of abundance and not limitation, because every day, every minute, every hour, there is 1, 2, 3, or whatever, how many opportunities to have that kind of an intervention and that kind of an engagement. So to me, it's much more about quality than quantity. And that's why the children's words about do more, but with wisdom really stayed with me. To the second question about what else or what can we do, it is, as you point out, Kozan, very intertwined with the first question, because what I'm trying to share is that each of us has ample, if not unlimited, opportunities to intervene at a personal, at an others, or at a system level, just wherever we are, right where we are. And we don't have to, always say, oh, I wish I could do whatever, something else that is, somewhere else. We have to trust that we are part of the mycelium and that there are thousands and millions of people who belong in that mycelium and who are working that mycelium network and who are doing so many things that we directly cannot get to. We have to trust that. But we also have to trust that as one little dot in the mycelium, we're doing absolutely our utmost. And if we're not, if there's a little question that comes up from somewhere down there, am I really doing what I could be doing? Then probably the answer is, what more can I do? But it is not about trying to bust through to other companies, other families, other nations. There are many people who are doing this. And we have to trust that there is this mycelium of good that is working in every single corner of the world. And we are a part of it.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, oh, wow. I see there are so many with their hands raised. What I'd like to ask those of you whose digital hands raised, if you could just because we have 5 minutes left in the session. There's enough time. Going to essence and one after another. First, Mary. You're on, oops, I unmuted you. Here, I'll unmute you again, Mary. Thank you.
I would like to read with the appreciation of everything that's been said today, a poem that Wendell Berry wrote entitled February 2nd, 1968. It was written in a deep heart response to the Malay massacre, and it is as prescient today as it was then. February 2nd, 1968. In the dark of the moon, in flying snow, in the dead of winter, war spreading, families dying, the world in danger, I walk the rocky hillside sowing clover. I would only add that we walk the rocky hillside sowing clover. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary and Wendell. Thank you. Claudia.
Hello?
I'm unmuting you now.
Yeah.
Going to essence, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Am
we
I-
hear you.
Okay. Thank you. So first of all, thank you very much. It's really, really a big pleasure to be here. And I want to say thank you to Christiana, because in 23, I met her through the course of Thich Nhat Hanh, Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet, in an incredible, difficult situation which we are living since 3 years about the energy transit in Europe. And I am with Susan. I think to a certain degree you have to judge, to get right from wrong and bad from evil, and then make your decision about your morals and how you want to react. And I think everybody who acts and reacts and is an activist needs a lot of help, especially from people like you and the Buddhism. It helps a lot. And yeah, and I can only say, learn how to look after yourself, but go with your morals. And if it's getting against big corporations, and if you're getting threatened, I think Thich Nhat Hanh also said, if you put yourself in danger, then you put yourself in danger. If you feel like it, go for it. But don't lose faith, and don't lose concentrating on the little miracles of life around you, the good air, the sun, the small flowers, the beautiful birds. And that's all I want to share. Thank you.
Claudia, thank you so much. Thank you. Kathleen, I'm unmuting you. Going to essence.
With great gratitude for everything on this, my first time with Upaya, I reflect that about 10 years ago, when I was only 64, I learned that I wanted to embrace the life stage called elderhood on behalf of my own being in the world, my community, my planet, and my country. At 74, I really appreciate the affirmation, Christiana, of the practice of seeking my inner truths that make me both stronger and wiser. And I do have that practice, and it's wonderful, and I'm flowering in ways I never anticipated I could do. Namaste.
Thank you, Kathleen. And Heather, I've unmuted you.
Thank you so much for this. Just yesterday, I had a friend who is terrified. He has a trans daughter who's 10 years old, and a neighbor who was telling me that her elementary school, where she's an assistant principal, has drafted a statement for what to say if people show up, if ICE shows up to take kids. And I was reminded of Standing at the Edge. I don't know if I'll remember it exactly, but where, Roshi, you talk about a little girl with her arm cut open, whose arm is being eaten by bugs. And instead of getting overwhelmed by the horrible circumstances, you focused on her bravery. And I'm so touched by that. It obviously makes me emotional. And I want to thank you so much for this series. These teachings have so much to offer the world, and not everybody has them. I was a speechwriter for many years for Mark Udall, who was the cousin of Tom Udall, and you've inspired me to start a Substack writing about this, that it's been very well received. And this is just tremendous. And I'm so grateful to all of you for putting this together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have to respect the reality of time. We are just over time. You know, on March 16th, Ruth King, who's one of the great voices of our time, particularly around race, will be joining us again in this series. And so I would love for, you know, Nick, Cynthia, Ellen, Aisho, and Paulette and others to add their voice. If you would put what you were going to say into the chat will then go on to onto the resource page. And Christiana, I just thank you with all my heart on behalf of everybody who's gathered here, and also Wendy and Kozan, Noah, Manny, Bonnie, all those beautiful bodhisattvas at Upaya. And then I want to just finish with words from Joshu, the monk who said, you know, when great difficulties come upon us, how can they be avoided? And Joshu, the great Zen master, says, straight, unvarnished, he says, welcome. So may we meet these complicated times with that spirit of, I was born for these times. I will meet these times. I will meet my own situation and the situation in the world with kindness and with courage. Thank you for your practice. I'm so grateful for our long body community. I'll see you on the 16th of March. And Christiana, a special thanks to you, dear friend.
Thank you all. Lovely to see you. Thank you.
I'm allowing all to unmute if you'd like to say goodbye. Thank you so much, Christiana, Roshi.
Thank you,
Thank
Christiana.
you.
Thank you.
Christiana.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.